Have you ever watched like a massive multi-billion-dollar rocket launch?
Oh, yeah. The tension is just unreal.
Right. There is this unbelievable, suffocating tension right before liftoff. You've had, years of meticulous preparation,
Hmm.
thousands of engineers, millions of tiny components, endless checklists, and it all just comes down to one singular moment. The countdown hits zero, and it is an entirely binary outcome.
It really is. If one calculation is off, it's a catastrophe.
Exactly. But if the prep work holds, you literally touch the stars. And I want to start today by looking right at you, the listener, and wishing that whatever launch you are stepping into today, whatever you are carrying your day and your entire week, are profoundly blessed.
Absolutely. A deeply blessed week to you all.
Because today, in this deep dive, we are looking at the ancient equivalent of a cosmic rocket launch. We're digging into our sources on Leviticus chapter 9, exploring what is essentially the ultimate opening day.
Yeah, we are looking at the detailed step-by-step blueprint of the very first public service of the tabernacle. And I mean, the stakes here are just astronomical for the ancient
I
Israelites.
can only imagine.
Right, because they have spent months building this portable temple out in the desert, weaving the garments, casting the gold, and moving through these grueling rituals.
Yeah.
And the promised payoff, the thing they are waiting for at the end of this massive countdown, is the literal, visible manifestation of the glory of the Lord. They are waiting for the divine to actually show up and dwell right in the center of their camp.
Which carries just an immense amount of pressure. And when we look at the source notes, before this grand opening can happen, there is some crucial prep work that has to occur.
Definitely.
The text explicitly tells us this all happens on the eighth day. Now, in a culture that's so steeped in symbolism, I'm assuming the eighth day isn't just, a random Tuesday on the calendar.
Far from it. The theological weight of that number is profound. So, this eighth day immediately follows a really highly structured 7-day period of ordination for the priests.
Right, because seven's a big deal.
Exactly. In ancient Near Eastern and Hebrew thought, 7 represents a complete cycle. I mean, the 7 days of creation is the most obvious example.
So the eighth day is,
It's stepping completely beyond the old cycle. The sources actually point out that this specific day inaugurates a new act of creation. It is day 1 of a brand new reality where humanity and the divine are going to interact in a completely unprecedented way.
wow. But before they can actually usher the public into this new reality, the leadership has to deal with their own baggage.
Yeah, they do.
The sources say Aaron, the high priest, the guy effectively in charge of this entire operation, is commanded to offer a calf for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering.
Yeah.
And he's required to do this for himself and his sons first, before he does anything for the rest of the nation.
Right, because he cannot act as a representative for the nation until his own ledger is totally cleared. The concept of expiation in the ancient world wasn't just about, uttering a quick apology. It was viewed as a mechanical clearing of a physical and spiritual ledger.
Like wiping the slate entirely clean.
Exactly, because ritual impurity and moral failure were seen almost as contagions. They created a literal barrier between the human and the divine. So Aaron has to undergo this really rigorous decontamination process because the text is highlighting a fundamental truth about his nature.
It's the ultimate spiritual oxygen mask scenario.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Aaron has to secure his own mask before he can mediate for a nation that might be, choking on its own dysfunction. He is absolutely no use to the congregation if he collapses at the altar from his own unresolved issues.
That analogy captures the mechanics perfectly. The study notes emphasize that this requirement proves, undeniably, that these priests are deeply flawed humans, too.
Right. They aren't perfect.
No, they aren't ethereal beings who somehow just float above the rest of the congregation. They need continuous expiation. They require the exact same grace, the exact same forgiveness as the people they are supposed to represent.
They aren't superheroes. They're just the flawed guys assigned to a very dangerous job.
Yeah, exactly. Approaching the altar was serious business.
So the mediator is prepared. Aaron has his oxygen mask on. Now, our deep dive shifts to the congregation. And the text gets incredibly granular here, demanding just a whole menagerie of
It
animals.
really does. It's a lot.
A goat for a sin offering, a calf and a lamb for burnt offerings, a bull and a ram for peace or communion offerings, plus a grain offering mixed with oil.
Hmm.
And the choreography of what to do with all of it is staggering. Blood on the horns of the altar, blood poured out at the base, meat and skin taken outside the camp to be burned.
Yeah, it's intense.
Let me push back on this sheer volume of steps, though. We are looking at an incredibly complex, multi-course menu of rituals here. Does this exact sequence actually matter? Or is this just ancient bureaucracy? Like, are they just doing a bunch of solemn things to prove how serious they are?
It is definitely not arbitrary. The study notes from the NAA Bible provide this brilliant analysis of the choreography.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The sequence is actually a highly logical, psychological roadmap for connection with the divine. It mirrors the exact emotional architecture required to restore any deeply fractured relationship. And it happens in 3 distinct, non-negotiable stages.
Okay, so what's stage 1?
The first stage is removing the barrier. That's why the sin offering the goat comes first. Because you cannot have intimacy with a holy God, or really anyone, if there is unaddressed wrongdoing standing in the way.
That explains the spatial reality of the ritual, too. I noticed the sources note that the meat and skin of that specific sin offering are taken entirely outside the camp to be burned.
Right, exactly.
It's not just forgiven. It is physically and spatially removed from the presence of the community. So, stage 1 is clearing the static on the line, getting rid of the barrier. But once the barrier is gone, you aren't automatically in a close relationship. You're just kind of back to neutral.
Right, which brings us to stage 2, which is about highlighting petition and praise. This is the burnt offering, and the Hebrew word used here is olah.
Ola. The sources actually point out this specific word is used 62 times in Leviticus alone
Oh.
and 286 times in the whole Old Testament. So it's a foundational concept for their entire worldview.
It truly is. The word literally translates to that which goes up, referring to the smoke ascending from the altar.
Okay.
But what makes the olah unique from other sacrifices is the mechanics of the fire. The entire animal is consumed.
Oh, so nothing is kept.
Exactly. The priest doesn't eat a portion. The offerer doesn't eat a portion. Every single part goes up. It represents absolute, total surrender. You are holding absolutely nothing back in reserve.
If we follow the relational logic, that makes perfect sense. Step 1, own up to what you did wrong and remove the barrier. Step 2, demonstrate that you are fully committed.
Yeah.
The total surrender of the olah proves you are all in. But total surrender without any reciprocal connection just leaves you subservient. The goal wasn't just submission, right? The ultimate goal of the tabernacle was a relationship.
Which perfectly sets up the third and final stage. The sequence concludes in communion. This
Wow.
is the peace offering, the bull and the ram. Unlike the olah, the meat from the peace offering is actually shared. It's a communal meal. God, the priests, and the offerers all symbolically sit down and partake together. It symbolizes fellowship, joy, and a fully restored relationship.
It is the emotional architecture of reconciliation, acted out in a very physical, visceral way.
Absolutely.
You apologize, you commit fully, and then you sit down and have dinner together. So the physical preparations are complete. The roadmap has been meticulously followed. And now we hit the climax of the narrative. After all this intense human effort, the focus shifts to the divine response.
Yes. This is the moment the entire tension of the narrative has been building toward.
The sources tell us Moses and Aaron entered the tent of meeting together. Up to this point, Moses has kind of held a monopoly on divine mediation.
Right, he was the guy.
He was the charismatic prophet who spoke to the burning bush, ascended Mount Sinai, received the blueprints. Walking into the tent with his brother, we are basically witnessing an institutional baton pass.
That's a great way to view it.
The charisma of the prophet is making way for the permanent structure of the priesthood. From this day forward, Moses steps back, and Aaron and the priests take over the mediation. And when they come out of the tent, Aaron lifts his hands, and they bless the people together.
And it is immediately following that blessing that the text says the glory of the Lord finally appears to everyone.
The rocket clears the launch pad.
Yes. But the manifestation of that glory is really intense.
Yeah, no kidding. The text says fire comes out from before the Lord, like physically shooting out from within the holy tent, and instantly consumes the burnt offering and the fat sitting on the altar.
It's incredible.
I have to admit, while this is framed as a triumphant moment, a spontaneous supernatural jet of flame shooting out of a tent and incinerating a sacrifice sounds absolutely terrifying.
Oh, for sure.
If I'm an ancient Israelite standing in the front row, my first instinct is to run for my life.
And that awe and terror are entirely intentional. But to understand why the Israelites don't flee, we have to look at the historical context of the ancient Near East.
Okay, lay it on me.
The fire isn't a weapon of destruction aimed at the people. In ancient covenant practices, a treaty wasn't just a signed document, it was a physical event, often finalized with a shared meal.
Like the peace offering.
Exactly. So the fire here is a miraculous manifestation of absolute acceptance. It is the divine signature on the contract. Consuming the sacrifice is God symbolically eating the covenant meal with them.
It's God signing the receipt.
Yeah.
Think back to Mount Sinai. When God made the initial covenant with the Israelites, the mountain was covered in fire, smoke, thunder. It was totally unapproachable.
Yeah.
Now, that same deity, with that same fire, has moved off the unapproachable mountain and set up residence in a tent in the center of their neighborhood. The fire shooting from the tent proves the creator of the universe actually accepts their invitation to connect.
It really does. It validates the entire grueling system they just spent months building. It is the ultimate validation of their existence as a people.
So how does a crowd of thousands actually process a terrifying, beautiful, fiery miracle of that magnitude? We have a massive group of people witnessing the undeniable proof that the divine is living next door.
Well, the human reaction recorded in the text is just a masterclass in the psychology of religious experience.
I love this part.
Upon seeing the fire, the people do two things simultaneously. They shout for joy, and they fall face down on the ground.
Yeah, and the Holman study notes point out a fascinating phonetic detail here.
Oh, the wordplay.
Yeah, a piece of Hebrew wordplay that ties this all together. So the Hebrew word for the fire that appeared is wayera. And the Hebrew word for how the people shouted for joy is wayera, wayera, and wayeranu.
So cool.
It really is. The author is inextricably linking the visual appearance of the divine to the vocal, visceral reaction of humanity. You literally cannot have the wayera without the wayeranu.
It is a brilliant poetic device. And when we examine the emotional state of the people, it represents a psychological collapse of two extremes.
Right.
You have explosive, ecstatic joy, the shouting, but you pair that instantly with the absolute physical humility of falling flat on your face in the dirt.
Joy and terror, celebration and complete submission. In our modern experience, we usually separate those emotions. Like you're either celebrating at a concert or you're terrified in a crisis.
Exactly. But in the presence of the true divine, at least as the ancient texts portray it, those two extremes collapse into a single unified reaction. You are thrilled beyond measure that the Creator has drawn near, and at the exact same time, you are humbled to the dust by the sheer, unmitigated power of that proximity.
It is an overwhelming full-body collapse of joy and awe. What a journey this text provides. We started with a vital preparation of the flawed mediator, Aaron, putting on his own spiritual oxygen mask to address his own humanity before he could help anyone else.
Right.
We navigated the deeply purposeful sequence of connection, removing the barrier with the sin offering, demonstrating total surrender with the Ola, and then sitting down for communion with the peace offering.
Such a clear roadmap.
And we watched the institutional baton pass from Moses to Aaron. And it all culminated in that unbelievable fiery jet of divine acceptance that dropped an entire nation to their faces in joyful awe.
It remains just a profound exploration of how ancient humanity understood the mechanics of approaching the sacred.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it leaves me with a thought that I want to offer to you, the listener. We talked extensively about how that specific sequence of offerings had to be followed.
Yeah.
Right before the miraculous fire of divine acceptance could fall, there had to be the Ola, the offering of absolute, total surrender. Nothing held back in reserve. Everything goes up in smoke. As you navigate your week, as you seek truth or deeper connection or a greater sense of purpose in your own life, I challenge you to consider, what does total surrender look like for you today? What is the Ola you need to place on the altar before the fire can fall?
That is a challenging and essential question to sit with.
It really is. Well, that is all the time we have for our deep dive into the ultimate opening day of Leviticus 9. And just like we started, we want to end by telling you directly that God blesses all of you listening. May your rockets launch successfully, and may you find profound joy and awe in the week ahead.
God blesses all the listeners. Goodbye, everyone.